Hello, welcome. I'm so glad all of you are here. Hope you're enjoying yourselves this weekend. I wanted to share a very interesting graphic. Does anyone know what this is up on the slide? It is the eye of God, but that's like the common name for it. The scientific name is it's a helix nebula. But this is untouched, not changed, not photoshopped. If you look out into space, you might see this looking at you, right? And why does it look like an eye? Well, I mean, there's an iris, right? There's a pupil there. There's a cornea, sclera. You've got everything there that makes up an eye. And it kind of looks like that, doesn't it? But is this just random? These are all just gases, aren't they? And didn't they just, come together on their own with the Big Bang, right? Isn't that what a lot of people believe? When you look at the Christian religion, it certainly isn't the largest religion. Anyone know what the largest religions are? Yeah, Islam is big, not the largest, but Islam, Hinduism, Catholicism is gigantic, absolutely more than 1 billion. Anything else? Buddhism's huge. Yeah. Atheism, secularism, humanism, and you could group all of Christianity into one big group, but how do you know which of these is correct? Right? How do you know? I mean, if you look at Christianity, it's like more than 30,000 denominations. How would you know even to choose which one? Right? How do you know which is right? Because everybody says they're right? Of course. What about us? We're 20 million. That's kind of small when you think about world religions, isn't it? What makes you think you know the truth? Why is your truth or your worldview better than the Buddhists or Islam, right? Why is your God God and not Krishna, right? Why is your prophet Ellen White and not Muhammad? Does that make sense? They got a lot more people on their side, so they must be right? Maybe not, but we'll see. In the beginning, God did what? Created the heavens and the earth. Isn't that a big statement, though? To say that God made everything? Our worldview says that everything came from someone, right? Atheism says that everything comes from nothing, or the Big Bang, or the pre-existing material. But where did the pre-existing material come from, right? So everything kind of came from nothing in that worldview. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, what? Let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So I'm not going to go through the whole story, since everybody here pretty much is Seventh-day Adventist or Christian. God created the sun, the moon, the stars, fishes, the birds of the air, the land animals. However, a common explanation for all of these animals and their particular features and their coloring and their adaptation is so that they can survive and do what? Reproduce, right? And produce more animals, right? But some of these animals seem to be painted wrong to hide, right? It's kind of hard to wear your tuxedo in the savannah and hide. Does that make sense? That seems a little weird, doesn't it? And some of these animals not only don't seem to be adapted for themselves and their own survival, but they seem to be adapted to you. Ever notice that? Anyone a dog person? Cat person? Both? All right. That's right. So everything was good. But then it got even better, right? God created man, human beings. And when did he say things were very good? What had he just created? Actually, Eve, yeah. He created woman. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. When you look at mankind, God gave them a job. Remember that, ladies? Adam had a job before he had a wife. Very important order, right? However, God gave them a prescription for their lifestyle. God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for food," right? And then after sin, what was added? Yes, vegetables. Some people say meat. I'm like, no, that was after the flood. If you put a mile worth of water, like, did you know we're a mile in the air right now? We're a mile above sea level. Did you know that? Anyone short of breath on the hike? No? Hopefully not. But there's a big sign in the gym, hopefully you've been to the gym, that says overexertion at 5,200 feet can be harmful for you. So they have to put that disclaimer on there. But the concept here is that God, during the flood, permitted man to eat meat because if you have a mile's worth of water above the highest mountain, what happens to everything on the face of the planet? It's pulverized, right? All that pressure. You ever dive like even 12 feet in a swimming pool? What do you feel? Pressure, that's right. You'd feel a lot more pressure. You'd be squished with that much pressure. So when you look at this slide, what's the first thing you think of? Color, right? The variety of color. How many different colors is meat? Well, or cooked or raw, maybe 2, right? Or animal products aren't really that colorful, right? And they say, oh, no, but cheese is so colorful. I'm like, that's annatto. That's a coloring. And that's penicillin that's growing on that. So when you look at this, what a variety of colors, right? What else do you think of when I click on this slide? Boom. Okay, taste, a variety of tastes, right? But not just sweet. What else? Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, right? Not just the 4 main tastes, but you see a variety of those tastes and kind of in between on some of them. What else do you see here? Textures, yes, exactly. A lot of different textures, right? There's bumpy, there's spiny, there's fuzzy, there's smooth, all kinds of stuff, right? Very interesting. How many different textures is meat? Cooked or raw, right? How many different tastes is meat? It tastes like chicken, right? I mean, right? It depends on how you season it, honestly, right? So when we look at man's original diet according to the Christian worldview, we see a variety of things. It's almost without end, right? But where does digestion begin? Everyone says in the mouth. I'm going to prove to you it's not true. Are you ready? Ready? Woo-hoo. That's sour. So what happened to all of you just then? Yeah, you salivated. But wait a minute. I didn't put the lemon in your mouth. This is in my mouth. What happened? Where does digestion begin? The eyes? Well, let's talk about the eyes. When you look at something, right, you have cells in the back of your retina. They're called rods and cones. The rods allow you to see light, right? It's not really black and white, but it allows you to perceive light. So a cat has how many rods? Lots of rods, right? A cat can see in the dark, but technically it can't see in absolute darkness because it at least needs a few photons to see. But you don't have as many rods. But you have other things. In fact, did you know that human beings are the champion of cones? Do you know what cones are for? Colors, that's right. Who can see most of the colors? You. Isn't that interesting? So who do you think can really enjoy this picture the most? You. Interesting, right? Look at your neighbor right now and smile. Smile. What did you just see? A beautiful person, right? What did you see in their mouth? Do I need to speak a little louder? I see some people can't hear. Am I loud enough? I'm pretty loud, I think, but anyway. You saw teeth, and what's the most common tooth in your neighbor's mouth and in yours and everybody else's mouth? The molar. Who said that? That's right. You know you have 4 rows of molars. If you count the premolars, 5 rows. What's a molar for? Chewing, but what is a molar construct? Yeah, it's flat. It's a broad, flat thing. And a millstone is also broad and flat. What's a millstone for? Grinding, right? Grinding. So you're designed for what? Grinding. What do you need to grind? Seeds, nuts, right? Isn't that interesting? Shake your neighbor's hand. All right. Did you know that that hand can not only appreciate all of those textures, but can discriminate between less than a millimeter? You know that? Your hand is so complex, it's no joke. In fact, when you look at the human brain and you consider it like a computer, right? Have you ever noticed you run out of room on your phone? Has anyone ever run out of room on their phone? Everyone know that? I don't necessarily endorse this cell phone, but when you run out of room on your phone, you go to see how much each thing is taking up, like how much space. Have you ever done that? And then you try to delete what? The biggest apps, right? Or photo or movie or whatever. Do you know what the top 3 apps for your brain are? Like what parts of your body take up the most memory? Anyone want to know? Well, you just told me for this, you needed what? Your eyes, your hands, and your teeth, your tongue, right? But the homunculus, which is like the breakdown of all the programs in the human body, the number 1, 2, and 3 are hands, eyes, and tongue. Interesting? That's fact. You can't deny that. It is what it is. It's not just true for motor, but it's true for sensory. So sensory, motor, biggest program, obviously the hand, right? And then after that, it's probably a tie between eyes and tongue. But you are designed that way. So let's go to the mouth. When you come to the mouth, you've got all these millstones in your mouth, so you're designed for seeds. But did you know that when every one of you saw that lemon and your salivary glands went, every drop of saliva says, "Give me plant." Did you know that? Every drop of saliva has salivary amylase, which is an enzyme specifically designed for plant carbohydrate. Whether you eat meat or you're vegetarian, you're lacto-ovo pescatarian, like flexitarian, or whatever you want to call yourself, you know, you were designed for plants. Whether you eat them or not, it doesn't matter. The body doesn't lie. And you come down to this little organ here. What's this guy? Stomach, right? And when you ingest protein, you have to produce an enzyme to digest them. And that enzyme becomes activated by hydrochloric acid. You don't have to remember the enzyme, but it's pepsinogen, pepsin. But the more protein you eat, especially animal protein, the more hydrochloric acid you need to produce. So here's a question. Who do you think has more hydrochloric acid in their stomach? Leo, the lion, or you? How much more? Try 10 times more. However, you, if you eat animal proteins, will try to produce more hydrochloric acid. You will also produce more ulcers, more reflux, more all kinds of bad stuff, right? How about that green guy? What's the green guy there? Gallbladder. What's it for? Emulsifying fat. Wow, not just digesting, emulsifying. Are you a physician? Who is that over there? I don't see who it was. But yes, you're right. And it's most important for saturated fat. You need a lot more bile for saturated fats, especially animal fats, which are mostly, right, saturated, pretty much all. And so when you eat more animal fats, you produce a higher concentration of bile. However, has anyone ever made rock candy? Who's ever made rock candy? Very simple, right? You create a supersaturated solution of sugar, right? And then you boil off the water. And then you put the string in there, and then what happens? Crystallizes, right? Because it's a supersaturated solution. But the same thing can happen in you. You eat a lot of animal products, high concentration of bile, don't drink enough water, and then you get crystallization, right? Gallstones. Kidneys are in the back, but that's all right. You need to drink water to prevent those too. So when you look at this, did you know 100 million Americans have gallstones? That's like 1 out of 3. That's insane. Did you know that? Why do you think the gallbladder was designed for a stone? To get a stone lodged in there? Oh, pancreatitis, cholecystitis. You think that was the design? So why do so many people have gallstones? Because they don't live according to their design. That is why. What's this long, stringy thing? What's the long, stringy thing? Intestines. What are they for? Digestion, but more specifically what? Absorption is correct, yeah. When you look up close to the intestines, they have these little finger-like projections called villi. That increases the surface area, allows you to absorb more. Imagine for a moment if I was going to make you chicken cacciatore. You don't have to do that. My Italian friends say if you do this, you're actually mad at them, so maybe don't do that. But anyway, I've simmered the sauces, I've ground all the pasta, the flour, making it from scratch, etc., and I've left the chicken thawing out for 12 hours. Oh, why'd you all not like that? Are you going to eat my chicken cacciatore now? What are you afraid of? Particularly salmonella, right? Because bacteria multiplies in warm, dark, moist environments. Simple. But did you know that your intestines are warm, dark, and moist? So guess who has longer intestines? This guy or Leo the lion? How much longer? But did you know Leo's a lot bigger than you? I mean, he's hundreds of pounds bigger than you. He's gigantic. Have you ever seen a lion up close? I mean, they're huge. So how much longer do you think your intestines are? Try 300% longer. Did you know that? Your intestines, on average, are about 30 feet. Average carnivore, 9 feet. Because they need to get the meat in and out. But when you eat it, it goes in and it stays in. Sometimes for a week. Yeah, right? True. The other thing I want to share with you is that there's a little enzyme on the very tip of the brush border of those little villi that stick out, and it's called lactase. You know what that's for? Milk, right? Lactose. Digest lactose. Every one of you has that enzyme, but at a certain age, the enzyme goes, and it goes to almost zero in some people. Anyone want to guess what age that is? It's about 2. That's right. What happens then? Yes. See, you were designed to drink milk. Your mother's milk. Right? I was in a lecture, true story, Loma Linda, and some of the lectures were with the dental students as well as us, and we had this lactation specialist, and she's like, look at this slide. Better nutrition. Look at this. Higher IQ. Look at this. Less autoimmune diseases. Look at this. Less allergies. Look at this. Better bonding. She threw up study after study after study. Finally, one of the dental students couldn't take it. He stood up and said, you've convinced me. I'm switching over. True story. I'm not kidding. It actually happened. Now, why do we all laugh at that? Why are you laughing? Because it's silly to go back to drinking your mother's milk after you're weaned, right? But which is sillier, drinking your own species milk or another one? I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying. So, Job chapter 12, verses 7 through 9. But ask now who? The beasts, and they will do what? Teach you. And the fowls of the air, and they shall tell you. Or speak to who? Any tree huggers here? Anyone talk to the earth? Yeah? Do you talk to your plants? No? Are you ashamed to admit it? That's okay. That's okay. And the fishes of the sea shall do what? Declare unto you. And what will they all tell you? That Jehovah of the Bible is creator. Anyone ever have a pet fish? Pet fish? Did it ever talk to you? My fish only went, that's it. So I thought, well, maybe this is symbolic. Anyone like flowers? Who likes flowers? Why do you like flowers? Colors, yes. So various colors. What else? What are the other reasons you like them? Fragrance, various fragrances, pleasant fragrances. What's the last reason you like them? Shape, geometry. That's right. The 3 principal characteristics of flowers are a myriad of colors. And who can appreciate colors? You. You're the champion of cones. And fragrance, right? And geometry or symmetry or aesthetics, whatever you want to call it, right? However, how do flowers survive and reproduce? How do they survive, reproduce? Yeah, bees, sure, right? They're pollinated. However, you know the bee doesn't even see this? I'm not kidding you. Does anyone know what this is? Who knows what this is? This has just come out this year. Does anyone know what this is? Who knows what it is? This is a startup in Poland. It's a paper for bees. It's a stationery for bees. So instead of throwing it into the landfill, the bees come, and do you know that they don't see those colors, but they see this color. And do you know what this color is? It's an ultraviolet color. Did you know that? Do you see the black light that someone's bringing over by it? You can't see this, but they can. And that's how they find the flowers. If a flower reflects the ultraviolet light, they will come if there's a food source. But did you know you can have a clear dish of sugar water that reflects the ultraviolet light and they will come? It can be square or circle or any shape. It doesn't matter. With all the pollution we have in the earth, the bees can't even rely on their sense of smell. They don't smell like you smell. But they see the ultraviolet. And they find a food source. So my question is, why is it colored that way? Why does it need that fragrance? Why does it have that beautiful symmetry, the Fibonacci series that rule in nature? Why? It's not designed for the bee, I'll tell you that right now. There's no way you can argue that this is designed for the bee. You can't. It's a losing battle. But I can argue that it was for you. Right? But remember, the earth is supposed to tell you that Jehovah is creator, right? I think he can do better than this, don't you think? He's God, after all. Could he not do anything he wants? How many of you have kids? Does anyone know there's one thing that every child will gravitate toward over everything else? One visual stimulus. A picture of a... No, not puppy. Puppy. No. Try again. It's a face. It's any face, actually. It's a face. That's correct. How did you know that? That structure of 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth is imprinted in all of Homo sapiens. No matter what culture, no matter what language, a child will gravitate toward a face over and over again, predictably. No question, no argument. So here's my thought. If God truly created everything, couldn't he be like your kids, right? Whenever your kids drew a flower, what did they want to put in the middle of it? A face, right? Why? Because it's imprinted. They're hardwired that way. They will always do it, right? And so did God. Photoshop? No. This is a monkey orchid. And it has a face. Of a different species on the plant. Not only is this a monkey, it's a baboon. It's a species of baboon. Did you know that? How does that help the flower? It doesn't. What's it for? Yeah, well, maybe it's just random, though. Are you sure it's for you? Maybe that's just random. What else did your kids start drawing when they were young? First sort of things they drew. They drew you. It's not just persons, but what did the person look like at first when they drew them? Yeah, just stick figure. It's a hominid form. That's what we call it. The hominid form of 2 arms, 2 legs, a trunk, and a head is imprinted in all of humanity. It is something that is hardwired in you. And it's also hardwired in nature. And different species. And different species. And just so you know, God's not chauvinist. There's girls too. Notice she's wearing a dress? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. That's a different lecture. You can't handle it yet. What does that look like? Did you know that's a plant? But it's called the baby in a crib orchid. What do you know? What does that look like to you? You know that's not even a flower? There's no nectar in the middle of that. It's just a frond of a plant. My question is, why? How does that help the plant? It does not. You see anything? Yeah, a little tiger. What do you see now? Not just a bird. A parrot, quail. What do you see now? Just it's a mallard duck, not just a duck. That's not an ant. Who said ant? You see anything here? Wow. Look closer. That's an orchid from Trader Joe's. Did you know that? It's in all of them. Every last one of them. It's an orchid. You can get it at Trader Joe's or any grocery store. Just so you know that you weren't faked out and just seeing a bird there, there's another one for you. How do you like that? What does it look like this bud is doing? What does it look like the plant is doing? Praying, yeah. And when you pray, what happens? Well, the Holy Spirit shows up. Bud stage, flower stage, no joke. What's that for? What's the purpose for that? To tell you that there is a designer. But what's he like? Anyone like coconuts? Are they bad for you? No, of course not. I love coconuts. But they got a lot of saturated fat. So is that bad for you? No. We'll talk about that next lecture, though. Well, not next lecture, but next time I come back, maybe. When you look at coconuts, where do they grow? In trees. But what environment? Tropics. Warm and moist, right? What environment would you most likely get heat stroke in? Yeah, no, not just dry. It's moist, because the moist really hurts you, because when you take a shower to cool off, you need another shower, right? You can't sweat and lose your heat from evaporation because there's so much moisture already in the environment. Does that make sense? Humidity is 100%. You're toast, right? So that's the problem. You can't lose it from convection. You can't lose it from evaporation. So you really can't get rid of your heat. Hot, moist environments, hot, humid environments are big, big danger zones for heat stroke, right? Heat exhaustion. However, when you're dehydrated, what do you need to drink? Water, of course. However, if you're sweating a lot, should you just drink water? What should you add? Electrolytes. Not just salt, but electrolytes. Would there ever be a time when you couldn't hydrate yourself? What sort of conditions would prevent you from hydrating on your own? If you're unconscious, yes. What else? Hopefully you're not that far gone yet. But if you were doing what? Vomiting, sure, vomiting. Or if you had a lot of diarrhea and couldn't keep up, like cholera or something like that. Does that make sense? So what do you do for people like that? Yeah, IV, sure. Pretty straightforward, right? Now what's interesting is, did you know that the University of Florida, they were accused of using steroids because they had started with a new drink that they were using? Does anyone know what that drink was? Gatorade, right? Why is Gatorade so successful? It's electrolytes. Does anyone know what the water in this little thing is full of? Not just electrolytes. What is the electrolyte you would lose most of if you were vomiting and had diarrhea? Potassium. Anyone want to wager a guess of what liquid naturally occurring is the champion of potassium? It is coconut water. It's not a banana. It's coconut water. But wait a minute. What did you say I needed to do to somebody if they started vomiting, couldn't hydrate, couldn't tolerate POs? What did I need to put in them? IV. Did you know that the osmolarity, concentration, and pH of coconut water is such that you can put it in the vein of Homo sapiens unchanged? Wait, and the water in that coconut is sterile. Because someone knew that you might be in trouble one day. And so they designed it for you. Anyone like art? I do too. Who likes sculpture? Take your kids to the beach, what do they all make? Sandcastles, of course. But this artist was very elusive. This was discovered in the late 70s, early 80s, and the sculpture is only in one place. So they knew that the artist couldn't be far away. However, this is the artist. It is a fish with the brain the size of a walnut. He creates the most complex structure in the entire world. And he only makes it in one country. Did you know that? Just one country.
Unfortunately, this small Japanese pufferfish is dull, almost to the point of invisibility.
Is not the
but
brightest.
To compensate, he is probably nature's greatest artist.
He is not the brightest.
To grab
one
a female's
in the ocean.
attention, he creates something
He's
that
like
almost defies
not that smart
belief.
compared to other ocean creatures. Like whales, really smart. Dolphins, super smart. Even an octopus has the problem-solving ability of a 5-year-old child. Did you know that? But this pufferfish is not that bright.
Are his fins.
And yet he creates the most complex and perfect structure in the entire world. My question is, why?
In his head, a plan of mathematical perfection.
This pufferfish is only 15 centimeters long. He creates a structure that's 2 meters in diameter. And he doesn't even see it, right? Because his eye is a fisheye lens.
He plows the sand, breaking it up into the finest of particles.
So he sees like kind of what you see when you look out your door, out the peephole, right? But if he's right up next to it, he can't appreciate it. He'd have to be like 30 meters up to see it. Does that make sense?
These shells aren't just rubbish to be removed. He uses them to decorate the ridges of his construction.
And remember, he's on the ocean floor, like about 50 to 100 meters out from the shore. So what's constantly happening?
He can't rest for more than a moment, but must work 24 hours a day for a week, or the current will destroy his creation.
Now what they try to say is he does this to attract a mate. And it's true, they do lay the eggs in the structure. And what would be probably the safest place to lay the structure as far as current and stuff like that? Predators, current. No, that would be the worst for predators.
And his masterpiece is complete.
You probably want to lay it in one of the really deep ridges on the outside. Does that make sense? And the other question I have is, if it's to protect the eggs, why don't you just make one deep furrow? Why do you got to create the most complex and perfect structure in the entire world as a pufferfish? And mind you, does anyone know what the most atheist country is? Like by percentage, by their own like surveys? Anyone know? It's Japan, actually. And although pufferfish are in every ocean and every sea, see, you'd probably plop the eggs right there. Does that make sense? Right? This is like come get it, free lunch. You know what I'm saying? The interesting thing is that even though the pufferfish is in all the oceans and the seas and whatnot, did you know that the pufferfish only makes that structure around Japan? That's the question. Because Yahweh knew that one day some of his children would forget him. So like Jonah, he sent them a fish to show them who is God. Now, let's go back to our text. What do these four things all have in common? Does anyone know? Anyone know? They're alive. Yes, thank you. Anything else they have in common? Yes, DNA. Did you know that the DNA in the animal world, the plant world, the fish world, the everything world is the same? When you have a sequence of adenine, guanine, cytosine, you have an order of those sequences, they code for the same proteins. Did you know that? DNA is the book of life. And when it has a certain sequence and order, it will predictively code for the same proteins over and over again. It is the blueprint, the instruction book for all living creatures on this planet. But can a book write itself? That's weird, isn't it? How's that possible? In fact, does anyone know who discovered the double helical structure of DNA? Watson and Crick, yes. What religion were they? Does anyone know? Yeah, sure, they were atheists. Does anyone know if their discovery changed their opinion? What do you think? It did, actually. It did. In his book, The Book of Life, Francis Crick writes that aliens came and started life on Earth. You laugh. You can read it. It's true. And he's not the only one who believes that. It's called polyspermia. That's a Greek word for little seeds everywhere, right? Little pockets of life. But their training as scientists had jaded them so far against Jehovah that they would believe in aliens before the designer. He is the God of creation. There is abundant evidence. But here's the question, right? How many of you knew all the things that I just threw up there? Knew everything already? Not one hand went up. Here's my question to that. Why? This stuff should be in every textbook of every elementary student. Did you know that? Why isn't it? I think the most interesting thing is not that you didn't know about all this stuff, because I didn't know like a year ago. This is all new for me. Did you know that? I have 2 graduate degrees. I went to Stanford. I consider myself decently educated, but apparently not well enough, because I did not know. But the evidence is there. The secrets are there in plain sight. But perhaps there's someone who's hiding it from you. Is that possible? Because is everything good on earth now? No, right? How many of you have ever volunteered in a very, very, very sad, poor country, medical work, any sort of volunteer work? A couple people, yeah. I was the only provider. It was so hot, dude. Oh, man, it was hot. And I was just seeing person after person. And finally, I was getting near the end, and I came to this elderly woman, and she was like 80, like older. And she was being led by her granddaughter, and she went to sit down. She almost missed the seat. They put the seat under her. I said, "Hi, I'm Dr. Reisenberger. How can I help you?" "Well, I'm blind." And I'm thinking, "So, how long have you been blind for?" "A month." I'm like, oh. Because when you go through the differential for blindness, I mean, there's a lot of things. I said, "Did you get anything in your eye?" "No." "Did you injure your eye?" "No." "Did something bite you in the eye?" "No." "Did you splash a chemical in your eye?" "No." It's just, I lost half of my vision, and then I lost the other half of my vision. I said, "Did you have anything associated with that?" "Yeah, my heart has just been pounding for the last couple months." I checked her pulse, atrial fibrillation. What caused her blindness? Blood pressure or stroke, thromboembolic stroke. Sure, absolutely. Kind of a bummer, though, to get both the chiasms, right? I mean, kind of a bummer. So I thought, well, maybe it could be temporal arteritis. But she didn't have any roperiness or tenderness, and she didn't have pain, right? She didn't have any pain. Temporal arteritis is very painful. It's like headache, right? And anyway, if you're blind with temporal arteritis, can we do anything? You can save the other eye, but once you've lost vision, that's it, right? How about retinal detachment? Can we help you there? Dr. Gensler, are you here? Can you help us? Could you put the retina back on? How soon would I have to present the patient to you, though? Just a few hours, yeah. Not that long, right? This is a month. So probably bilateral stroke. So what am I going to do? Well, I am going to refer her to neurology. I'm going to put her on a blood thinner. Why? I don't want her to have more strokes. Is that right? I mean, she's at least walking now, right? And I put my hand on her and I prayed, as I always do with every patient. I said, loving Father in heaven, if it is for your honor and glory and the praise of your Son, Jesus Christ, I ask in his name, the great physician, that you would give Barita her sight back again. And then I said, what we're going to do is refer you to a specialist. I'm going to give you some pills to take to thin your blood. And then she interrupted me and said something to my translator. I said, well, what did she say? Well, she said, well, I won't need that because I can see. And I said, what? I'm seeing now. So I repeated my vision exam because previously she had no accommodation, no light perception, no finger counting, Zippo. She had all those things afterwards. And yet I didn't believe. I said, hey, I need you to read something. She's like, but I can't read. I said, no, we have stuff in your language. She's like, I can't read my language. I said, here's a bottle. What does it have on it? She's like, well, it's a vitamin bottle, a bowl of fruit on the back. I said, can you identify them? Tell me the colors. Well, apple, it's red. Yellow, banana. Orange, it's orange. And I said, you can see. And at this point, everybody around me started going, they started like singing and going crazy. And everyone's like mobbing us. And I'm just like, wow, where did all these people come from? So everybody and like their mother showed up to clinic. And I finally just told the nurse, I said, tell them we're not going to be able to see all of you. And they replied back, don't see us, just touch us. And I said, wait a minute. This is like, I didn't do this. And I said, tell them this is not about me. And my nurse said, yeah, that's no problem. But before I do that, can you pray for my knee? Nobody's ever been able to, and I don't want surgery. I said, what? She could see. And so she gets up to go leave. I said, oh, no, I want you to stay here. She's like, why? I can see. It's funny in this picture. I'm like, whoa. My nurse is like, what? And she's like, why are you taking my picture? That's how my God rolls. That's what basically she was thinking. But I said, no, I want you to stay here. Why? I want to talk to your family. Why? They're 4 kilometers away. I said, I want to talk to them. So she stayed there. Then our family members showed up. And I went out to meet them. And I said, why did your relative come to clinic today? He said, my grandmother came because she was blind. When did she go blind? A month ago. And then I went back to her. I said, who is that coming? She's like, that's my grandson. And she walked away. I have never, ever seen something like that happen. Anyone here had that happen to them? No. I've never had a colleague have that happen to them either. But I can tell you that I had the least amount of faith of anybody in that equation. And yet Jehovah drew near and healed her anyway. And I said, well, it was for her. You know what I mean? Because she obviously had faith. She wasn't surprised. But then a friend of mine corrected me. He's like, no, that was for you. I said, what do you mean? He said, you don't think she prayed at home? God did it for you and your faith. Because she was healed when you prayed. Barita's faith was strong. God knew yours was weak. And for a moment, I realized that Jehovah had drawn near and touched her eyes and touched my heart. Then again called they the man that was blind and said unto him, give God the praise. We know that this man is a sinner. Who are they talking about? Was Jesus a sinner? But I am. I'm telling you. Right? Whether he be a sinner or no, I know not. One thing I know, that whereas I was blind, now I see. But here's the question I had, right? Because after I saw Barita, every single person after that, I prayed at the beginning and the end. They sat down, I'm like, what's wrong? I can't walk. Okay, let's pray. Well, let me tell you the story. No, let's just pray. And I'm like, what words did I use? You know, that's what we're like, isn't it? It's sad. And I said, okay, try to walk. And no one could walk. And no one was healed after that. Or the next day, or the next day. So what do you think my question was? Why? Right? Don't you care? Have you heard people say that about God? God, why don't you heal me? I'm Seventh-day Adventist. I'm vegan. No, I'm serious. Have you heard that? I heard it just this morning. Why? Is God able? Yes or no? Well, obviously he is, right? Because he can just go, and this woman can see. So why doesn't he? Who is God? When Jesus saw him lie, and he knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he said to him, what? Who is this question addressed to? Who was it addressed to? The man who was the paralytic at the pool of Bethesda. Did you know Bethesda is BDSDA? I'm just saying. You can look it up. It is. Coincidence? I don't know. But anyway, do you want to be made well? No, I'm here to suntan. Why do you think I'm at the pool? Doesn't that seem like a strange question? I mean, be honest. Doesn't that seem like a strange question? But it's a very important question. Because he is the God of choice as well. And there are many of us who say we want the truth, but we can't handle the truth because we won't obey the truth. And there are some miracles of healing that would actually be harmful for us, right? I mean, I know that's hard to believe, but it's just like, let me tell you, when you're sick, you're praying a lot because that's all you can do in bed. True or not? Yeah. But when you're well, how much do you pray? When everything's going well, how much do you pray? Be honest. Very little, right? You thought about that? We had a very interesting question yesterday where someone asked about God sending people delusion. Do you remember that? Look at this verse. Go, tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, and perceive not. Make the heart of this people what? Fat. Make their ears heavy, shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert and be healed. Doesn't sound very nice, does it? But how do you explain a verse that's confusing in the Bible? Other verses, thank you. The Bible is its own interpreter, right? The Bible, that's our mantra, right, as Adventists. Look at this version. Look a little bit better. What do you think? Still not satisfactory, right? What do you think? And it appears a third time, right? For the heart of this people is waxed gross. Their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have who? They closed, lest they should see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their heart, and should be converted, and what? I should heal them. Sound a little better? You know it's the same verse? There are many verses that are hard to understand, but the Bible is clear and will explain it in other verses. So who closed the eyes? We did, not they, we, right? And who wants to open them? Who wants to heal us? Did you know that in Desire of Ages, Ellen White makes it very clear how many people Jesus Christ wanted to heal at the pool of Bethesda? How many? She says he longed to exercise his healing power and make every sufferer whole. Why didn't he? Anyone know? Anyone know the rest of the passage? But that day was the Sabbath. Right? So he chose who? The most wretched victim. But see, now Jesus doesn't have to worry about them shutting down his operation because he's like, I can do this, right? Why doesn't he heal them all now? Now. Can he? Yes, he can. Why not? If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face. Notice there's something that happens before you turn from your wicked ways, because you can't turn without seeking God's face. Do you realize that? You can't turn without prayer. You don't have the power to do it. And turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will do what? I will heal their land. This is an interesting passage because I prayed. I'm like, God, why? Why didn't you heal everyone? He showed me this passage the next day. And the next day at clinic, I saw one of the nurses carrying around a big bag of money. I said, what is that? She hid it behind her back. I said, no, come over here. They said, I said, I don't care if Ted Wilson said. I want to know what that is. Well, the conference said we needed to start charging everyone. That's why God doesn't work. Not because people need help, but because of you and I. We are the problem. Right? The Lord does not do what? He does not now work to do what? Bring many souls into the truth. Do you think if this sort of stuff happened, many people would come into the truth? Yes. Are you kidding me? There wouldn't be 200 people. There'd be 200,000 people here. Watch. The Lord does not now work to bring many souls into truth. Why? Because of, secularism. Because of atheism. Because of the Sunday law. What is it? Because of us, who have never been converted, and those who were once converted, but who have backslidden. What influence would these unconsecrated members have on new converts? What would they not make of no effect the God-given message which his people are to bear? What is that God-given message? It's not the three angels' message. Ooh. The context of this is not the three angels' message. Do you want to see the context? Can you handle it? I don't think you can, but I'm going to share it anyway. There is a message regarding what? Health reform to be born in every church. There is a work to be done in every school. Neither principal nor teacher should be entrusted with the education of the youth until they have what kind of knowledge? A practical knowledge on the subject. I don't care if you've been vegan for 30 years. You're obese. You have a problem, right? You're sick. You're not well. Your body is screaming to you that something's wrong. And you have closed your ears and closed your eyes. The health message is not just fried chick, okay? It's not just diet. There's lots of things, right? You can eat very well, but if you don't get any exercise, you will be sick. It's that simple. A practical knowledge of this subject. Some have felt at liberty to criticize and question and find fault with health reform principles of which they knew little by what? Experience. They should stand shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart with those who are working in right lines. The subject of health reform has been presented to the churches and everybody accepted it. It has not been heartily received. The selfish, health-destroying indulgences of men and women have counteracted the influence of the message that is to prepare a people for the great day of God. That's the three angels' message. If the churches expect what? Do you want strength? I do, praise God. They must do what? Live the truth. Which truth? Which truth? The health message, which God has given them. If the members of our churches disregard the light on this subject, which subject? Health reform, they will reap the sure result in both spiritual and physical degeneracy. And the influence of these older church members will do what? Leaven those newly come to the faith. The Lord does not now work, and then that's the passage I shared with you. God showed me this, that it is us. Would they make of no effect the God-given message, right? Let all examine their own practices to see whether or not they are indulging in that which is a positive injury to them. Let them dispense of every unhealthful gratification in eating and drinking. Some go to distant countries, to Tenaya Lodge, right? To seek a better climate. But wherever they may be, the stomach creates for them a malarious atmosphere. They bring upon themselves suffering that no one can alleviate. Let them bring their daily practice into harmony with nature's laws. And by doing, as well as believing, an atmosphere will be created about both soul and body that will be a savor of life unto life. Brethren, we are where? Far behind. Many of the things which the church should do in order to be a living church are not done. Through the indulgence of perverted appetite, many place themselves in such a condition of health that there is a constant warring against the soul's highest interest. The truth, though presented how? In clear lines, is not accepted. I wish I could set this matter before every church member. Our habits must be brought into conformity to the will of God. We are assured God works in you, but man must do his part in controlling appetite and passion. The religious life requires the action of mind and heart in harmony with the divine forces. No man can of himself work out his own salvation. We can't do it, right? But God cannot do this work for him without his cooperation. But when man works earnestly, what happens? God works with him, giving him power to become a son of God. Do you want to see God work? Do you want strength in our churches? Then it starts here. And it starts with the health message. I know that was kind of a surprise. But if my people, not the world, right, that are called by my name, how many of you want to commit to the message that you have? I'm not saying you know everything about health, but just commit to live the life that you know. Would you like to do that? All right. If that's your decision, please stand with me as we pray. Loving Father in heaven, you are God, and there is no other. Father, I thank you for Barita, for the lesson that she taught me, Lord. But help us, Lord, to be in cooperation with you, that you truly may come back, that you may work with power, not only in their lives, but in our lives first, Lord. We thank you and we praise you for this answer. In Jesus' name we thank you. Amen.